Hello everyone, welcome to Chicken Coop Confidential. My name's Lucian, and today's topic of the discussion, the disappearance of General McCasland. Come join me as I offer you my insights on what I think may have happened. Now, before we get into the disappearance, I think it's critical to establish who we're talking about. This wasn't just a retired officer. This was a man at the absolute pinnacle of Air Force technology. First, you see he was the commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory, AFRL, at Wright-Patterson. This means he oversaw a massive multi-billion dollar budget. He controlled the science and technology that drives future aerospace systems. Crucially, he served as the Director of Space Acquisition, working directly in the office of the Undersecretary. His main responsibilities was planning and procuring all Air Force space assets. And scientifically, he holds a PhD in astronautical engineering from MIT. This is not a bureaucratic role. He is a leading academic expert in orbital mechanics and space systems. In short, Major General McCasland wasn't just involved in special access programs and sensitive high-level research. For much of his career, he was running them. Okay, I think it's important right now that we do a timeline of his disappearance on February the 27th, 2026. So let me just read an overview of this, and we'll go from that. I'll try to put up a graphic also so you can read along as well. At 10 a.m., a repairman arrives at the residence. He speaks with General McCasland at 10 a.m. Repairman arrives at the residence and speaks with him. It's just normal interaction. According to the repairman, General McCasland wasn't acting funny in any kind of way or seemed out of sorts in any kind of way. At 11:10 a.m., his wife Susan departs home for a scheduled medical appointment. At 12:04 p.m., Susan returns home. General McCasland is gone, and there's a window of 54 minutes that he's unaccounted for. At approximately 1 p.m., immediate searches of the immediate property and the neighborhood, they begin. Late afternoon, law enforcement and search teams are activated, and the focus is on the nearby Sandia foothills. Okay, so this is where the story completely falls apart for me, and why we need to focus on this 54-minute window here. We are told a repairman is the very last person to see General McCasland alive, leaving just before 11:10 a.m. Now look at this map. This graphic shows how a modern secure neighborhood should work. In 2026, you cannot enter an area like this without hitting multi-layered security. You have private doorbell cameras, the ring and nest systems that are everywhere, and most are gated, affluent communities have established license plate readers, or LPRs, covering the main entrances. Now here's the total digital silence that nobody in charge seems to be talking about. According to all available data, there were 0 CCTV hits on any service van entering this neighborhood that morning. There were 0 LPR reads on a license plate for that van entering or exiting. Now think about that. A commercial service vehicle, which is rarely subtle, penetrated an extensive modern digital grid, parked at the general's house during the critical window, and exited, all without leaving a single trace on camera. Now how does that happen? We are supposed to accept that this 54-minute blind spot is just a coincidence? In any standard homicide or missing persons investigation, the last person to see alive is instantly a person of interest, if not a suspect. Now, why is this specific repairman not being treated with extreme scrutiny when a digital evidence of their very presence doesn't exist? Well, to me, it points to either a massive failure of the grid or a sophisticated effort to avoid it. Now, I want to be very clear with everyone watching this. What I just laid out regarding the surveillance gap is just purely speculation. As of right now, there is no public evidence or an official statement from the FBI or local law enforcement naming the repairman as a suspect or suggesting they were involved in any kind of foul play. In this investigation, we have to separate what we think might have happened from what we actually know, okay? We deal in facts here. And the fact is we have a missing general with no digital footprint leaving that neighborhood. Whether that points to the repairman or something else entirely, we can't say for sure. We are only pointing out the holes in the official narrative that just don't add up. Speculation won't find the general. Only truth will. So, let's look at the next set of hard facts, the physical evidence found in the mountains. Now, let's look at the physical evidence left behind at the residence first. In any investigation involving a missing person with a mental fog or a medical condition, you expect to see a certain level of confusion in what they carry. But the inventory of the McCasland home tells a very specific and a very conflicting story. First, let's look at the items that he left behind. He left his Apple smartwatch on the charger. He left his cell phone inside the house. Most importantly, he left his prescription glasses. For a man who needs those for near vision and reading, leaving them behind suggests he didn't plan on being gone long or he wasn't the one in control of his departure. But then, look at what is missing. He didn't just wander out in his slippers. He took his hiking boots from the gear closet. He took his wallet, containing his ID and his cash. And most significantly, he took a .38 caliber revolver and its leather holster from his gun safe. This is the contradiction. Why would someone who is allegedly confused have the presence of mind to gear up with rugged boots and a defensive sidearm, yet leave behind the primary tools, his phone and his glasses, that he would need to get back home or call for help? It's a deliberate selection of gear. It's the kit of someone heading into the terrain prepared for a hike or a confrontation, but acting as if they didn't need to see a screen or talk to the outside world ever again. This wasn't a random walk. This, my friends, I think was a prepared exit. Okay, so look at this. This right here, the prescription glasses, is the item that should bother everybody, I think. We're talking about a man who built a career on the most advanced space system in the world. Precision was his life. If he was suffering from mental fog, his glasses were his only lifeline back to reality. You don't grab a .38 revolver and a heavy-duty hiking boots, but forget the one thing that you need to actually see what you're doing. Leaving these glasses behind suggests he either didn't think he was going far or he didn't have a choice in the matter whatsoever. You don't gear up for the mountains and leave your eyes on the nightstand. Just doesn't happen, people. Okay, guys, so I searched everywhere to find this proof. And this is why we keep digging for facts, okay? This is why I keep digging for facts. And what you're looking at is not speculation. This is Major General William Neal McCasland doing what he loved in the mountains. This is how he geared up. He was always prepared. You see the tactical gloves, the specific bucket hat, the specialized gear. And look right here what we have. Prescription sunglasses. We are told he left without his glasses. We know they were recovered from his nightstand. For a man who relied on these every second he was outdoors, leaving them behind is a total break in his pattern of life. He would never enter that terrain without his vision and the critical eye protection that the harsh environment demands. And now here's the real shock. The one fact that hasn't been widely publicized. We established that the investigators found a shirt at the house that was believed to be the color he was last seen wearing. But a separate piece of key evidence has never been found. These, the actual prescription sunglasses. The pair he is wearing in this picture, and likely a second backup pair, are entirely unaccounted for. This means he didn't just leave his glasses at home. The items he needed to survive and function in the wilderness, and his primary eyewear and protection, are gone. And yet, his prescription clear lenses were still at home. It doesn't make sense. It points directly to a situation where he either left in such extreme duress that he grabbed something but not the right thing, or that he didn't gear up but was prepared by someone else. You can find his boots, but you will not find these glasses. They did not recover these, and that, more than anything else, is the proof of foul play to me. Okay, to understand how someone simply walks away into nothingness, you have to see where Major General McCasland lived. This wasn't a downtown city street. This was Quail Run Court, right at the edge of the Sandia Heights. From his front door is a straight line into the Sandia foothills. You are looking at thousands of acres of rugged, high desert terrain, canyons, massive boulders, and steep vertical climbs. This was his backyard, the place where he spent his mornings running and hiking. But here's a geographic puzzle, and you know how much I love puzzles. If he left on foot at 11:10 a.m. and his wife returned at 12:04 p.m., he had less than an hour to disappear into that landscape. Yet despite K-9 units, drones, and helicopters saturating these Pacific foothills within hours, there was no sign of him. It wasn't until later that a sweatshirt was recovered deep in the terrain. But even that discovery leaves us with more questions. Was it dropped there as a breadcrumb? Or was it left by someone else? We're looking at a man who knew these trails like the back of his hand, yet the mountain seems to have swallowed him whole in under 60 minutes. Okay, looking at this satellite view, you can see the reality of the situation. This is the northeast corner of Albuquerque. The houses you see here, including the one on Quail Run Court northeast, aren't just near the mountains that are built directly into the base of them. The line where civilization ends and the Sandia foothills open space begins is razor thin. There are no fences here. There are no monitored gates. If you walk out of your garage and head east, you are in a massive, primitive wilderness in less than 5 minutes. This geographic reality is what the official narrative relies on. The idea that a man could simply step off the map. But when you look at this layout, you have to ask, how does a high-level military official trained in survival and navigation disappear in a square mile of terrain that was swarmed by professional search teams within the first 2 hours? The proximity makes a disappearance easy to start, but the density of the search should have made it impossible to hide. Okay, to truly understand this investigation, you have to kind of look at the geography. This is the northeast Albuquerque in the Sandia Heights. We pulled this high-res satellite view just so we could show you the pattern of life versus the pattern of the terrain. This blue marker right here is General McCasland's house on Quail Run Court. You can see the neighborhood, upscale quiet, and right up against the wilderness. Okay, now follow this white line. This is the entire mystery right here. We measured it from his garage door to that red line where the pavement ends and the scrub brush begins is less than a quarter of a mile. This is not a long hike. A fit, retired military officer carrying a weapon and wearing boots covers that distance in about 4 or 5 minutes, walking at a comfortable pace. He can step outside, turn east, and be on a dirt trail before the neighborhood even wakes up. The proximity is why the search initially focused so heavily on these immediate canyons and trails. From 11:10 a.m. to 12:04 p.m., that 54-minute window, he didn't have to walk very far. He only had to walk about 3 minutes to reach the boundary of the Sandia Mountains wilderness, where thousands of acres of unforgiving terrain start immediately. The map proves that walking into the mountains was effortless. The puzzle is that despite starting right there, at the threshold of the search area, we are supposed to believe he vanished into it, without his glasses, while taking defensive gear and boots. Well, this visual shows just how close he was, and why the absence of any trace, right at the starting line, remains inexplicable. Now, when you look at this map, most people focus on the surface, the trails and the brush, but there's a second landscape here that isn't visible from a satellite. Right along this boundary line between the houses and the foothills, there is an extensive network of drainage tunnels and concrete culverts. These aren't just small pipes. Some are large enough for a person to walk through, standing up. They are designed to funnel millions of gallons of mountain runoff away from these homes. Now here's the critical point. To reach these access points, General McCasland wouldn't have had to hike for miles. As you can see from the markers, some of these drainage entries are located within a few hundred yards of residential streets. If someone, either the general himself or someone else, wanted to move without being seen by those digital defenses we talked about, or wanted to stay out of the sun and sight lines of the search helicopters, these tunnels provide a perfect shadowed corridor. We know he took defensive gear. We know he took his boots. If he entered one of these drainage systems right at the edge of the neighborhood, he could be deep in the mountain shadow in minutes, completely invisible to the drones and canine units that were scouring the surface above. The proximity to his front door makes the tunnel theory a fact of geography and not just a guess. This is the hidden Albuquerque. These massive concrete arroyos and drainage tunnels are scattered all along the edge of Sandia Heights neighborhood. For most people, they're just part of the city's flood control. But for a researcher looking for a missing person, they represent a tactical highway. Inside these tunnels, you are invisible to the world. GPS signals struggle. Drones can't see you. And the sound of a search helicopter overhead becomes a distant muffled hum. As we saw on the map, these entrances are just minutes from the general's front door. If he entered one of these, he wouldn't be lost in the mountains. He would be moving through a pre-planned, sheltered route. When he went in there to seek cover, whether he went in there to seek cover or whether he served as a way to move him away from his home without a single security camera catching a ping, this infrastructure is the missing piece of the puzzle. Now, looking at the visual, I think we've been looking at it all wrong. We've been talking about where he could walk. But look at this infrastructure. These aren't just drains. They are concrete highways hidden right in plain sight. In Albuquerque, these arroyo channels are built for maintenance trucks to drive directly into. They are wide, they are paved, and most importantly, they are sunken. You could drive a full-size SUV through these channels and your neighbors wouldn't see anything but the top of the roof. They could even see that, which I very seriously doubt. If General McCasland left that house in under an hour and no camera saw him on the street, this is the only logical answer to me. He didn't wander into the mountains to get lost. He was moved through a system that was designed to stay out of view. This isn't a theory about a confused man. This is a theory about a tactical extraction. You drive in, you pick up the asset, and you disappear into the drainage network. By the time the search helicopters were in the air, that vehicle would be miles away, having never once touched a public road. Now, here's a real game changer for me. The point that changes the entire scope of this search. If you're looking at this map and thinking General McCasland had to walk through these high desert drainage tunnels, well, he didn't. He didn't have to walk any of it. Look again at how close his house, the blue H, is to that transition zone, the red line. This isn't just where hiking trails begin, it's also where massive vehicle-sized drainage culverts emerge. The theory is simple and chilling. He didn't wander into the scrub brush. He left his front door and entered a vehicle that was waiting for him at the opening of one of these specific shadowed culverts. We're talking about a pickup in a geometric blind spot invisible to every residential security camera and doorbell. From there, it is not a slow, echoing walk. It is a quick drive through the paved or sandy floor of that diversion system. But where does this drain pipe lead? It leads, of course, to the diversion channel itself. But in this unique area, there is a possibility that has been overlooked. The deep connection. We know that just a few miles south of this area lies Kirtland Air Force Base and a highly classified Manzano Base, an installation known for its profound deep underground command facilities and tunnels. While the city's drainage system is public, it's possible it intersects with an unverified tunnel, a deep level connection point, potentially established for covert access or military diversion. A waiting vehicle picks him up. It drives in, travels a few minutes through a known channel, and then it merges. It doesn't exit into the Sandia Mountains. It exits beneath them, entering a secure, separate, deep-level tactical tunnel that connects directly to a classified military facility. In that 54-minute window, he doesn't disappear from the map. He disappears under the map. He's moved from a vulnerable civilian suburb directly into one of the most secure military complexes in the country, completely bypassing every public road, camera, and checkpoint. I don't think this guy was lost. I think he was extracted. Okay, so we've seen the terrain, we've seen the hidden highways of the arroyos, but now we have to go back to the source. We have to go back inside the house on Quail Run Court. When investigators first entered this home, they were looking for a missing senior. But they should have been looking at a crime scene. Let's talk about what was left behind. We know his primary prescription glasses were sitting right there on the nightstand. We know his cell phone, his lifeline to the world was left in the house. But here's a detail that doesn't fit the hike theory. The investigators noted a shirt at the residence that matched the description of what he was supposedly wearing. If he was already dressed for the outdoors, why is the clothing still there? More importantly, let's look at the timeline again. 54 minutes. In that time, he supposedly changed his gear, left his essential vision and communication behind, and vanished. If this was a standard search, why wasn't the house immediately cordoned off? Why was the scene cleared so quickly? When the physical evidence, the glasses, the phone, clothing, all screamed that he never intended to leave on his own terms. Okay, so this is the visual that completely changes the narrative to me. Okay, we've established that the General's home, the Blue H, is just a quarter mile from where the foothills begin. Now look at this new marker. This is where, 8 days into the search, a gray U.S. Air Force sweatshirt was found. It's deep. It's located in the dense, brushy terrain about 1.5 miles into the foothills. Now, we are told this shirt is a clue. But look how the official story contradicts itself. We know that in the hours immediately following his disappearance, professional search and rescue canines trained in human scent discrimination were deployed right here, near the neighborhood interface. Okay? If he walked from his house, past that red marker, and into that terrain, he had to create a scent trail. Sweat, skin cells, breath, all of it creates a digital thumbprint that these dogs would follow. Yet, when the specialized scent dogs and the trailing dogs were used, they reported absolutely zero scent trail. Not a single definitive ping leading from that cul-de-sac toward the mountains. Here's the ultimate proof that something is wrong. When that actual shirt was found, they brought the search dogs to it. Now their nose is their job. If that shirt belonged to General McCasland and he was in it, it would be a scent bomb. But no scent was found on that actual shirt. Dogs work by smelling the human raft that clings to everything. No raft, no connection. To find a piece of clothing miles from the home and yet have no biological trail leading to it and no scent on the object itself is scientifically impossible if he was wearing it. This map doesn't show where he walked. It shows where a red herring was placed. So, if we have a piece of clothing found over 1 mile deep in the foothills, but the family doesn't recognize it and it has no sense, what are we actually looking at here? This is the cornerstone of my investigative analysis. And it is the moment this case pivots from a missing person story to a story about a coordinated evasion. I don't believe that shirt is a clue. I believe that gray Air Force sweatshirt was a plant, a piece of counterintelligence, and trust me, I know about counterintelligence, designed to throw this whole entire investigation off. Now think about who we're talking about. General McCasland was a man trained in high-level strategic thinking. If this was a staged disappearance, he or the team extracting him would have anticipated the massive mobilization that would immediately begin here. The drones, the helicopters, the hundreds of volunteers, they were all going to swarm that interface zone. But this investigation has a 54-minute window. In that time, he can't walk very far. He only had to make it to one of those shadow drainage tunnels we looked at earlier. From that point on, he is invisible. But a vehicle doesn't leave a scent trail, and a tactical team leaves no footprints. You have to give the massive standard search mechanism a target to keep it occupied. So, you wait 8 days till the energy is fading, everyone is searching for a body, and then you find a piece of clothing miles from the home in dense brush. Suddenly, every search resource pivots. We are looking at this precise spot on the map, over 1 mile into the wilderness, and the assumption is that he must be out here. The search stays localized to the Sandias for weeks, expending tremendous energy and resources in a place where he left no scent. It is not a trail, it is a decoy. It's not about finding him, It's about making sure you are looking exactly where he isn't. Okay, we started this investigation by looking at a map. We saw a house on a quiet cul-de-sac, line in the sand where the foothills begin, and a mystery that supposedly swallowed a major general in under an hour. But when you look at the evidence that I've shown you today, the lack of a scent trail, the family's confusion over the sweatshirt, and the massive concrete diversion channels that sit just yards from his front door, the picture begins to change. General McCasland wasn't a hiker who got lost. He was a high-value asset with deep-level access to the most sensitive secrets of this nation's defense. In a world of digital surveillance and satellite tracking, he knew exactly how to move without being seen. The 54 minutes he spent vanishing wasn't a tragedy. It was a tactical maneuver. Whether he entered a vehicle waiting in the shadows of a drainage tunnel or moved through a deep-level connection toward Kirtland or Manzano, he didn't leave a trail because he didn't want one found. That sweatshirt found a mile into the brush, that wasn't a mistake. That was the final signature of a man who knows exactly how to make a crowd look left while he moves right. The search for General McCasland continues on the surface, but the truth is likely buried much deeper in the infrastructure we aren't supposed to see and the stories we aren't supposed to tell. So stay tuned to Chicken Coop Confidential as we continue to track the signals that everyone else is missing. All right. We've looked at the maps. We've analyzed the missing scent. And we've seen how easy it is to move a vehicle through this city's hidden concrete veins. Now I'm going to tell you exactly what I think happened to General McCasland. I don't think this man spent a single second hiking in those mountains. I believe he walked out his back door, moved less than a quarter of a mile to the mouth of one of those drainage tunnels, and stepped into a waiting vehicle. That's it. No struggle, no wrong turns, just a clean, professional handoff and a tactical blind spot. He was driven through that network directly onto the secure grounds of the military base. From there, he wasn't a missing person anymore. He was an asset being relocated, okay? The authorities want us focused on a mile-deep search in the dusty foothills, looking for a sweatshirt that wasn't even his. But I think the general is long gone. In my mind's eye, he's not out there in the scrub brush. He's in a place like Sardinia. He's sitting on a world-class beach, feeling the salt air, sipping a cold drink. The kind with a little umbrella in it, you know. He spent 50 years in the darkest corners of our nation's secrets. He didn't vanish to get lost. He vanished to finally be found by nobody. Search is over for him, but it's just the beginning for us. I'm Lucian. Stay tuned and stay curious now. I want to thank all of you all for taking this deep dive with me today. Before we go, I want to be very clear about why I'm doing this. This channel is not monetized. You aren't going to see any PayPal links in the description. And I'm not here asking for your money or your donations. I'm not promoting any group or pushing any agenda. I'm doing this because I want to get the truth out there. And I want to share my thoughts on what's really happening behind the official headlines. This is about investigation, not profit. But I do want to hear from you. What do you think about the extraction theory? Do you think the infrastructure in Albuquerque is the key? Or do you have another take? Please leave a comment below. I read them. I read all the comments. And I want to get a conversation going on this. If you value this kind of independent research, please like this video, share it with someone who's following this case, and subscribe to Chicken Coop Confidential. It helps the channel grow and ensures you won't miss the next field investigation. Thanks for watching. I'm Lucian. Keep your eyes open, and I'll see you in the next one.